Okay, right, well, thank you all very much for coming. We'll try and keep this as short as we reasonably can for obvious reasons. Just again to say, my name's Kenneth Bannerman. I'm the head of the Airfields of Britain Conservation Trust. So first of all, I'll hand over to historian Guy Thomas, who will give you a history of the airfield.
Okay, thanks Kenneth. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Okay, so this is just a very snapshot of what went on here, as we were saying 100x years ago. So it was in late 1915 that about 212 acres of farmland was requisitioned by the government to establish a training site here at London Colney. The site was located between three parishes, St Stephen's, Shenley and London Colney, hence representation today. I don't know, pouring with rain when they signed off the contract. It was to be called London Colney to avoid confusion between Shenley and Kenley. So the airfield became an operational unit in 1916, and in July the newly formed 56 Squadron arrived from Gosport under the command of Major Leslie Gossage, who was to be knighted later for his contribution to flying in war and peace. However, it was a certain Major Blondfield who took over as commanding officer in early 1917 and began to build the squadron into a fighting unit here at the airfield. The 56 Squadron on subsequently became the first squadron to receive the new SE-5A fighter aircraft, which is the Supermarine Spitfire of World War I. Together with one of its selected pilots, Captain Albert Ball, and until recently there was a relative of Albert Ball, his brother, living in London Colney, not so far from here. And at that point he was the RFC's leading ace with 36 Fitcheries. It's his job to tour training squadrons and select pilots to join 56. By April 7, 1917, the squadron was ready for active service and took off for France. Ball was unfortunately later killed and buried in a cemetery at Unveiling in France with 44 victories to his credit. And he from that won the Victoria Cross. Meanwhile, what was going on at London Colney? Well, it may have been raining. It was growing in size and importance as a training ground to enable pilots to develop their navigation, combat tactics and live gunnery practice, all taking place in the sky above and around London Colney. And before their squadron formed up prior to going to France, there was a new squadron, 56 Training Squadron, flying Avro 504s, SE-5As and later Fokker 5s. Something up there is in September 1917, 92 Squadron arrived, and later 74 Squadron, nicknamed Tiger Squadron, arrived with a certain Mick Mannock, who was another fighter ace. That's why London Colney had so much importance. Who later was to become the top scoring pilot in World War I. Additionally, the USA had joined Great Britain, and the 24th US Army Air Squadron arrived. Their pilots trained up before they departed for France. So the combination of these squadrons established London Colney as a number 141 training depot in the summer of 1918. However, later in 1918, as the war came to an end, the airfield started to wind down its training, and after the armistice was signed in November 1918, 44 training depot was disbanded. So London Colney was retained by the newly formed Royal Air Force, and in 1919 was used by two more squadrons, before finally closing in November that year. The airfield's flight sheds, MT buildings, workshops and stores were demolished by a local contractor. Only one building remained on site, with the officers' quarters being relocated to St Anne's Road in London Colney Village, where they survived intact accommodation today. And that concludes the story a brief story on London Colney.
Thanks very much, Guy. Great speech. Excellent. Well, again, won't hold you long, but just as we say in our travels, like we did yesterday at Tame or Haddenham Airfield in Buckinghamshire, which, like here, they've been redeveloped for housing. Just do all you reasonably can to help save, honour and protect Britain's airfields, both active and disused. This is also a big part of what our national charity does. Because in short, we just cannot remotely afford to lose our airfields, whether they are active or disused, in our everyday lives. They're the most marvellous forces for good, and they help us in an incredible variety of ways. We just can't afford to lose these places. So just please do everything you can to help them, honour them, and of course not forgetting all the incredibly brave and dedicated people who've served at airfields like here, and in turn not forgetting their families. We must never ever forget. And incidentally, as Guy was just saying, with the two houses along at St Anne's Road, they're still there. One of them sadly looks as if it will be going fairly soon, but they are tremendously rare survivors for what's left of World War I airfields. As regards here, everything's just completely gone. But just as a quick point, you all of course remember the hospital here, but it's a bit like, I'll just say your hand over to the mayor, that it's a bit like chicken and egg, you might say, because if it wasn't for the airfield, you wouldn't have had the hospital and you wouldn't have had the houses here. So although it might not be us, this is how important London Colney is and always will be. So I would now just hand over to the mayor.
Ken, Guy, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for being here this morning. I think these are Australian rains, probably induced. Apologies to anybody from the Antipodes. Grateful thanks. I'm honoured to be here. Grateful thanks to the Airfields of Britain Conservation Trust for all your work, and also to the London Colney Local History Society for everything you've done. And to everybody else who's been involved, no doubt, in many other ways to ensure that we're here this morning. And in some ways, sort of the fact that the elements are beating down upon us, and thinking back, 107 years to when this would have been, I suppose, open land and woodland and whatever, without the M25 tunnelling past, without housing, without a hospital, without probably many houses nearby. You just have to use your imagination. And one of the things that probably happened when those extraordinarily brave young men went off to fly was that they were buffeted by the elements. So in some ways it's appropriate that we're not just here on a sunny morning thinking this is a lovely sunny day, but actually relating to what some of those people did and the extraordinary courage. They were pioneers, they were transport pioneers, they were pioneers in terms of fighting the services, and obviously many of them went off and lost their lives in what, I think history tells us, and rightly, that was an extraordinarily futile war of immense loss. So many thanks to those involved locally. Just a couple of other things I wanted to say, and I hope nobody's suffering too much from the rain. I see there's a cloud over there. I have two themes for the mayor all year. One is about trying to bring generations together. The other, which is in a way a supplementary theme, is to support the research and promotion of our awareness of history in the city and district. And I know technically we're just outside the city and district, but so my apologies if I'm encroaching in any way, but I suspect the fields of history don't necessarily get closely determined by local government boundaries. But I'm immensely proud that over many generations the City and District of St Albans has taken its history very seriously and had a thriving museum service which has gone over the last 5 years from strength to strength, and that there are within the City and District also a number of organisations mentioned, obviously most locally London Colney. There's other really local history societies, but we've also got major history societies like Sahars, which put on all sorts of fascinating events. And I attended, here I might have done so, about 6 weeks ago, a lecture by Professor Michael Wood, who's probably done more than anybody else to promote interest in history. And he wrote in a book that he wrote about 20 years ago, he said, there are many ways in which history is important. It shapes our identity, it gives reality and authenticity to our family and communal life, creates for us a sense of a shared past, and not least it fashions our sense of justice. And I think in a way, what you have here, for those people who are coming to live near here, they will need to develop a sense of identity. And in many ways, what you've achieved here, reminding people of what was here before, is very much in tune with what Michael Wood was saying there. And the last thing I wanted to say, I think it's very appropriate, it's very timely. I think you're probably aware that the Heritage Alliance have actually put out a challenge to government, both national and local, to ensure that policies, whether it be tax policies, whether it be planning policies, whether it be employment policies, whether it be cultural policies or education policies, all recognise and seek to promote our interest in history and our heritage. So thank you, absolutely enough from me, but thank you for being here. I really regard this as an important occasion, and great to thank to everybody who's been involved in ensuring that this memorial is here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, therefore, without further ado, we're really honoured to be able to unveil our latest memorial. In this case, yet another of Britain's absolutely unique and irreplaceable assets. In this case, the one and only London Colney Airfield. And God bless everyone who served here. Thank you all very much. Okay, come on, Guy. Thank you. Just lift it. Yes, so I'll get that. I'll just get the thing out of the way. Yeah, I should put it round back. Yeah, just put it there. That'll be fine. Okay.
All right. Hands on the.
If anyone needs to ask any questions, just naturally feel free with me and my colleagues, and of course not forgetting Guy and Ken Barker as well.